What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly Sports History for March 23rd, 2024. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a rainy Saturday edition of the podcast. Just a dreary, it's going to be pretty much a washout today. But as always, let's start with a recap of yesterday's question of the day. I asked you who should be the Phillies opening day center fielder, and 57% of you think it should be Christian Pache. 29 say Johan Rojas, and 14 said Brandon Marsh. I want to see how today goes. I really think I need to figure out what is going on today. I know one game shouldn't necessarily make a difference, but Rojas, let's see if he can build on what he's been doing the other day. I'm imagining he'd have to be in the lineup because Bryce is playing today. But I think it's tough, but I think you got to have Rojas in there for the defense. Give him maybe the first 15, 20 games to see how he does and then sort of go from there. But I'm glad I don't have to make this decision. But as always, thank you for reaching out and voting on the question of the day. We'll have another one later in the show. The Back to the Future voice and text line, 267-495-8531, gets you in. All right, so I know we have some new listeners out there. And the old school listeners know that I always like to make sure everything is accurate. Every now and then I'll mess it up and I won't get something right. But yesterday when we were talking about the Big Five teams playing each other in the tournament, I mentioned the 71 Nova Wildcats and how they went to the Final Four, but it was vacated because one of their players signed a contract with the ABA. I incorrectly said it was Harold Presley. It was Howard Porter was the guy who signed the ABA contract that ultimately led to the Final Four berth getting vacated. Harold Presley, however, also was a Villanova Wildcat player as well in the 80s. So that's where that confusion came from. I had the wrong HP. But as I say, I always like to make sure I'm giving you the correct information. So it was, in fact, Howard. I can see how it is. Howard Porter, not Harold Presley, who was I believe Harold Presley was on, I'm looking it up right now. I believe he was on the 85. Yep, he was on the 85 team. So both of them played in the Final Four. I just had the wrong HP. So Howard Porter was the one that got signed the contract with the ABA. So like I said, I always like to make sure I keep things as accurate as possible. So there you have that. Quick programming note. Next week, I am off from my day job. So likely the podcast will be a little bit later than what you're used to. I haven't decided what my routine is going to be, whether I'm going to stick to my normal routine or try to get caught up on some sleep. But either way, if you don't see it early like you normally do, it'll probably be more on a weekend schedule. So stay tuned for that. Also, be sure to follow me on my social media, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, Jimbo_Mont, Instagram @PhillyJimbo. And the best way to stay in the loop with everything is just subscribe to the YouTube channel, especially now that everything is streamlined to this day in Philly sports history. All right, March Madness update, and the Drexel women fell to the Texas Longhorns 82-42 yesterday, but what a great season for them. Went through that unexpected run in the CAA tournament, and honestly, I do have to say, it's pretty cool, and even though they got waxed by Texas, I think seeing the smile and the joy on their faces, that to me is what March Madness is about. The team just got beat by 40, and you could see the girls as they were going through the handshake line just with big smiles. Like they were just so happy to be there. And again, I feel as though that's what March Madness is about. Just, yes, it's fun for the big teams to go to the Final Four and make runs and all of this. But for the underdogs like Drexel, the Cinderella stories, like James Madison yesterday went in, Oakland the other night, like those are the fun stories. But just seeing the look on those girls' faces, like that's incredible. And that to me is what March Madness is about. So shout out and kudos to the Drexel women on one hell of a season. Unexpected, great effort. We are definitely proud of you. So that is our March Madness recap for today. I know technically the Princeton women are still alive. They play today, but I don't know. I think I have a hard time accepting Princeton as a local team because of Penn also being in the Ivy and Penn and Princeton having that rivalry. So not really going to include them in our March Madness watch. But kudos to the Drexel Women Dragons for a great season. All right, Phillies open up against the Braves on Thursday. Opening day starter Zack Wheeler pitched his final spring training tune-up yesterday. And if this is how he's going to pitch on Thursday, look out, Braves. 5 1/3, a hit, 5 Ks. He looked sharp, looked good the entire time. And like ever since he signed that contract, he's been lights out. So we're going to need him to really kickstart, especially with some of the struggles with Walker and Sanchez in the bullpen, or at the back end of the rotation. But Alvarado, Dominguez, and Hoffman all looked good as well. Hoffman himself had 3 Ks. Gregory Soto, not so much, but that's okay. Like if you can get Jose Alvarado, Sir Anthony Dominguez, and Jeff Hoffman to pitch like they've been pitching so far this spring, we're going to be okay with the bullpen. I think we've been following the Jake Cave, Christian Pache thing. Pache went 0 for 1. Jake Cave went 1 for 3. As I mentioned, I want to see what Rojas does today. And I know, again, it should not be based on one game, but if he can put together back-to-back solid outings with at-bats, and like he doesn't even have to get a hit today. I want to see him hit the ball hard. I think I'm fine with him starting in center field. And then likely you're going to have Cave be the guy because he's going to be a left-handed and he can pinch hit for Johan late in the game if need be. Brandon Marsh also went 1 for 3, so that goes back to the question of the day. It's good to see him being a little bit healthy. I mentioned that Bryce is going to play today. He had a solid outing on the back fields, they kept calling it. And then you look at the back fields, and it looked like the Little League fields that we played on, just a million times better. But anxious to see. He's going to start today in Tampa. I believe they're playing the Yankees. Be sure also to check out the Phillies preview. Drop that on Thursday of this week. Give my predictions on the team as well as 3 bold predictions. But that leads us all into today's question of the day. The question of the day is other than center field, because obviously we know center field is the big question mark for this team right now. Take that out of the equation. What's the biggest question mark for this season? Is it Bryce's health? Is it the bullpen, or is it the 4th and 5th starters, Walker and Sanchez? And we're going to knock on wood for Bryce's health again, just to be safe. But let me know. Hit me up on the Back to the Future voice and text line, 267-495-8531. Get you in. What is the biggest question mark other than center field with this team? Is it Bryce's health, the bullpen, or the 4 and 5 starters, or is it something else? I know I read early in spring training they were talking about just how many games over the course of the past few years that Real Muto's been playing and whether or not he's going to be resting more and how he's going to hold up. So could it be that? But hit me up. Let me know what you think on the Back to the Future voice and text line. 267-495-8531 gets you in. All right, now we're going to the Sixers, and not a good start to this West Coast swing. We had said earlier that we needed them to go 2-2. They're now 0-2, and I'll be honest, the Lakers were one of the games I had circled that they could win. But 101-94, they lost last night. Tyrese Maxey had 27, but they faltered in the fourth quarter, and they just couldn't. They had a lead. They just couldn't sustain it. Again, this is a young team, not playing with full health, but man, and this has been a pattern since Joe's been out. Like, they've been able to get leads, but not been able to hold on to them. It happened in Boston. I think it happened one of the games against the Knicks. It's just becoming a pattern. They hung tough with the Suns the other night, too, until the fourth quarter. So, desperately missing Joe, who has been ramping up his workouts. Hopefully, we'll have him back in a couple weeks. Hopefully it matters. They're down into the 8th seed now, so they're firmly in that play-in conversation. But everybody's so bunched together that they're right there, able to move up into 6th if need be. So hopefully he can come back for a couple regular season games. The best part about last night, though, we did have a Tobias Harris sighting. He had 16 and 13, so it's good to see Tobias back. We missed you, buddy. We missed our assassin. Anyway, Union in action out on the West Coast tonight at 10:30 against Portland. Lots of West Coast games, man. I hate the West Coast. And no offense to my West Coast brethren out there, but man. So they're playing Portland. The Flyers are in action this afternoon against the Bruins, and then they take on the Panthers tomorrow night. Definitely a huge stretch for them. They need to get some points out of both of these games, but it's not going to be easy. No word as of this morning, as I'm recording, whether or not Sean Couturier is going to play or not. But Danny Briere was asked about it the other day, and he basically left it. He's fine with it. He left it up to the coach. He said, listen, he knows way better than us, and we'll leave it up to him. So it seems like John Tortorella has the support of the front office. Anxious to see whether or not he's a healthy scratch, and if he does play, whether or not the message that whatever the message is that Tortorella was trying to send to him got through. Do have a couple Eagles notes. I did see an interview with Magic Johnson, who said he's trying to catch the Cowboys and Eagles in the NFC East, and really looking forward to see what Dan Quinn can do. I don't know if Dan Quinn really moves the needle for me, 28-3, but we'll see. And finally on the Eagles, still no extension for Devontae. Howie, what are you waiting for? It's March Madness. It's raining outside. Now would be the best time to just re-sign him. Come on. I want that notification. I want to pick up my phone today when I'm watching basketball and see breaking news. Eagles extend Devontae Smith 3-year, $59 million, whatever you're going to give him. Let's make it happen. It could be a deal worth up to 62. I don't know. Just throwing out random numbers, but Howie, make it happen today. You know who makes it happen every time? Philly Goat. And if you're not checking out phillygoat.com, I'm not sure what you're waiting for. It's a rainy day today. Perfect day to go check them out. They have a wide selection of shirts, hoodies, hats. Those canvas loafers are just phenomenal. Do a little retail therapy today on a rainy day. Go to phillygoat.com. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off your order. You won't be disappointed. My shoes should be coming next week. I cannot wait. So go to phillygoat.com. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off of your order. All right. The rest of the show is going to be a little bit different than what we've been doing the rest of the month. And that's because there's a lot of overlap in this. So today we're going to go back to 1974. And on this day in 1974, the Immaculata women's basketball team beat Mississippi College 68-53 to win their third consecutive AIAW, the Association for Intercollegiate Athletics for Women's Championship. The Mighty Macs at the time were on top of the basketball world. So as I mentioned, we're going to do it a little bit different today because there is a tie-in here. And we're going to tie in our Philly Sports Women's History Month spotlight to this. And we're going to spotlight the 1971 to 1974 Immaculata women's basketball team, the Mighty Macs. And we just said on this day they won their third consecutive. But basketball at Immaculata started back in the 1930s for women. They won the 1946 unofficial city championship. I guess even though they were suburbs, they were considered the city at the time, beating the Temple Owlettes, handing the Owlettes their first loss in 4 years. I'll be completely honest, as huge of a Temple guy as I am, I did not know that the women's basketball team was known as the Owlettes, but I digress. There's your bonus fact for the day. Head coach of the Mighty Macs, Kathy Rush, was a graduate of Westchester, and when she came on, she started implementing strategies that only men's basketball teams would do at the time, like really getting their conditioning and things like that up to par. So I guess she did a lot of full court pressing, and they were able to just outlast the other teams because of their conditioning. So that first year, they beat Westchester to win the first ever AIAW National Championship. The following year in 72-73, they went undefeated, beat Queens College for the national championship, which is important because the head coach of Queens College, Lucille Cavallos, was also the former coach at Westchester and coached Kathy Rush before Kathy Rush went to Immaculata. Are you following that? Because there will be a quiz. Just kidding. And then in 73-74, they went 20-1, like we said, beating Mississippi College on this day in 1974 for the third consecutive AIAW championship. The The cool thing about this Mighty Macs team is many of the former players on Kathy Rush's team, the Mighty Macs, they went on to be successful Division I coaches. Mary Ann Stanley, Teresa Grant, and Renee Portland, to name a few. Kathy Rush herself is a basketball Hall of Famer. Now, she's a Hall of Famer because she won those 3 in a row, but in 75 and 76, they went back to the final and lost. So they went to 5 consecutive AIAW finals before the rest of the nation really caught up with them. And ultimately, Title IX then led to this, and the AIAW ultimately led to the NCAA admitting women's sports into their organization, I guess the NCAA is. But it's pretty cool that Kathy Rush and Immaculata, a little school out in Malvern, was the forefront and the epicenter of the whole women's basketball movement. That team, the 74, 73, and 72, 70, I can't even count today. The 72, 73, and 74 Immaculata Mighty Macs, those teams are in the Naismith Hall of Fame, which is pretty cool. Like a team, the entire team is voted into the Hall of Fame. You probably have seen the movie The Mighty Macs, which is based on their story. Among other things, and we've talked about some of these over the past month or so, they played the first nationally televised women's game on TV. They played the first ever women's game at Madison Square Garden, which is pretty cool. They were the first game of the doubleheader against Queens College and Lucy Cavallos, but I forget the teams that played in the second game, but it was a men's game, and everybody left. Like, majority of the crowd left after Immaculata and Queens played, which I thought was pretty cool, and just like especially for Women's History Month, just a very, like, if you can visualize the teams or the fans walking out during the men's game, which was the second game, which essentially would have been the headliner, and then they all left once the women left. I think that was pretty cool. I mentioned in 1972 it was the first women's AIAW National Championship. And I thought this was a pretty cool little tidbit there. In 1978, they played there was a double header at the Spectrum. Old Dominion, Immaculata, Rutgers, and St. Joe's. All of the head coaches at the time, because Kathy Rush wasn't Immaculata, all the head coaches were graduates of Immaculata and played for Kathy Rush's Mighty Macs team. So it just goes to show you the span of just how great of a coach she was and how great these teams were. The Mighty Macs are in the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame, the Delaware County Sports Hall of Fame, as well as the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame. We talked about them being in the Naismith Hall of Fame. But shout out to today's Women's History Month Spotlight, the Immaculata Mighty Macs from 1971 to 1974, 3 straight NCAA championships under legendary head coach Kathy Rush. Many of those players would go on to be successful and even Hall of Fame coaches in their own right. And then on this day, back in 1974, the Mighty Macs won their 3rd straight, beating Mississippi College 68-53. So it's all Mighty Macs today. The little school out in Malvern, which was at one point the epicenter of women's basketball in America. You gotta love it. March Madness is great, is it not? Be sure to get through on the Back to the Future voice and text line and let me know what is the biggest question mark for this team, for the Phillies, other than center field. Is it Bryce's health, the bullpen, or the combination of Walker and Sanchez at the back end of the rotation? Let me know. 267-495-8531. Get you in. Be sure to hit me up on the social media, Jimbo_Mont, Instagram at Philly Jimbo. Hopefully you're staying dry today. I got to go pick up the groceries, and then I'm heading out to watch some basketball. So looking forward to that. But let me know the answer to the question of the day or anything else on your mind on the Back to the Future voice and text line. Good day to check out that Phillies preview if you haven't done so already. If you want, you don't agree with my bold predictions, or you don't think, I had somebody tell me the other day, they sent me a text. Yeah, way to go with the bold predictions. They're not really that bold. But go listen and see for yourself. I thought they were all bold, but maybe one of them was not bold. It was boldish, but whatever. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History. I'm Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a Saturday. Stay dry. Hopefully your bracket doesn't get busted. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.